So I'm going to I am going to introduce yourself too, Sean, before we start. Okay. Okay, good afternoon to all of you. Welcome to our last meeting. Welcome to our last meeting of the Experience the Cultural Diversity. So today we are going to have the last meeting for Australian culture. So before we start, we are going to start with a prayer. And Rimanuela, that's your turn to have a prayer.
Natasha, ma'am.
Natasha, okay. Thank you, Natasha.
Okay, shall we pray? Our dear Heavenly Father, we thank you, Lord, for your blessings to each one of us. Lord, in this beautiful afternoon, we have gathered here together through Zoom to start our program. Lord, please bless us from the beginning until the very end. Bless our family, friends, relatives, wherever they are and whatever they do. Thank you, Lord. Forgive us from our sins. For we pray in the name of Jesus, our personal Savior. Amen.
Thank you, Natasha. So before we start with Mr. Sean Godley today, I'm going to explain or introduce him to you. Just a little bit information uh, about him as well as the family. But the rest of that will be introduced by Sean for sure. Is that okay, Sean?
That's fine.
And the question and answer will be asked directly to you, Sean. So feel free. Would you like to have the question and answer every section when you have done talking, or at the end of the uh, presentation? That's up to you.
Okay.
Okay, so Sean Godley, married with a little family, his wife and son, and they currently live in Redcliffe. Is it Redcliffe? Is it right?
Redcliffe, yep.
Yeah, which is on the coast north of Brisbane, the capital of Queensland, Australia. He has lived in many parts of Australia due to his career paths. In his previous life, he worked for McDonald's for 10 years, and he worked his way up to management, and he still believes McDonald's has one of the best running systems. Once he completed his first degree in mass communication at University of Southern Queensland. We are from the same university. He was fortunate to be offered a position in Indonesia to teach conversational English. And when he returned to Australia, he joined the Royal Australian Army as a hydrographic surveyor and served for 10 years until his son was born. He made another career change, went back to university, and completed his graduate diploma in education and his master's leadership and management in education, leading him to become a secondary high school teacher in Catholic education system. He now teaches mostly senior level classes in religion and history, which he has been doing for the last 7 years. So that's a little bit about Mr. Sean Godley. And now the time is yours, Ron.
Thank you for having me. It's a bit strange actually hearing that hit read out, going, I've done a lot, haven't I, over my life. So today we're talking about culture. What is it? What is your understanding of culture? Anyone got anything? I hear crickets. Culture is a term or a construct of people who come together sharing the same sort of stuff. Today, I'm going to enlighten you on Australian culture, which isn't very much different to Indonesian culture in a lot of ways. We share a lot of similarities. What do you guys know about Australia? What are the things that you understand about Australia?
Feel free to answer that. What do you know about Australia?
This is worse than my year
Anyone?
12.
Come on.
Have
What do
good.
you know about Australia?
I think Australian has a good education life.
Yep.
Education system, I mean.
Yeah. Very good education system. Yeah. We are a very lucky country. We're a multicultural country. Australia is founded on many other nations. We had our Indigenous population here originally, and then when white Europeans came, we brought a number of different other countries with us. One of the first lots of Asian people that came to Australia was actually the Chinese. However, our records from Indigenous people also state that they had interactions with Indonesians well before the Chinese arrived in Australia. Australia is a country that is a democracy, but we're also part of the Commonwealth with the Queen of England a head of state. What that means is that our Prime Minister is in charge and creates the laws that we have to run by. But those laws have been very meticulously done and have created a society that is very welcoming and opening. One of the things that a lot of people say about Australians is that we're very friendly, we're very open, and we love to joke around and have some fun. Our values are around respect. Everybody is equal. We believe that dignity of the person is important and that each and every one of us has freedom to do what we want in our country. So that means we have the freedom of speech, freedom of association, freedom of religion, and secular government. And all of this is supported by our parliament and our democracy. Our laws are there to protect us, and they are some of the hardest laws in the world. For example, gun control in Australia is very much controlled. Not many people have weapons as such, and that is due to the fact that our government took a stand in the early 90s to reduce the ability to own weapons, to keep us safe, due to the fact that there was a couple of incidents in Australia where there was mass murders happening. Men and women are treated the same. We're all equal. We have the ability to both go and work. We're encouraged to get an education. It is one of those things that we take for granted, I think, being a developed country. Australians take a lot of things for granted as well. But one of the biggest things is that we like to have a fair go and allow people to have a fair go as well, in the sense that you can make something of yourself here. If you're willing to work hard and put the effort in, you can do many things here. Does that make sense? Am I talking too fast?
Does that make sense?
Not, yeah, makes sense.
Yeah,
Just go on.
just go.
Just go. Okay. So, in general, that's Australia in a nutshell. Our way of life. More than 80% of Australians live in cities or big towns along the eastern coast. We live in suburbia a lot. And there are many schools, churches, shopping centres and all that. Very similar to Jakarta, very similar to Balikpapan, Sulawesi in South Sumatra, Rajabasa and all that as well. We all live, 80% of us live on the coast. That's because that is the most fertile area in Australia. Even though Australia is so big, it's the smallest continent, the largest island. The interior of Australia is very hot, dry, and deserts. It's only around the coastal region that a lot of people live. I'm just thinking about what other things we like to do. We're a friendly people, we're easygoing, and we use a lot of colloquialisms, like she'll be right, see you later, mate, put another snag on the Barbie. All of those stereotypes are actual common things in Australia. We do that quite often. Our culture here is one of outdoors. We love being outside. We love the idea of open spaces, the ability to go run in a park, to sit down and eat a picnic in a big park, go fishing in our rivers and lakes and dams is another big thing that we love to do. And we like to socialise. We like our mates to come around to chat and just get together and be together. We love our sport. Sport is massive in Australia. One of the big things that people will say is that Australians are very enthusiastic about their sport, especially football. Sorry, when I say football, I'm talking about rugby league or rugby union, not soccer. Soccer is big in Australia, but it's not as big as some of the other sports. We love the beach. The beach is probably one of the biggest things for us. And we always love having competitions. We love trying to outdo each other, trying to get one up on one another. Cricket is another big sport that we play in Australia, and it's got a massive following. However, it's not as big as AFL or rugby league. Kids love sport and they're always outside as much as possible, but they also have lately, in the last few years, I'd say, a lot of kids have started on the gaming computer side of things. The internet has allowed that to happen, and a lot of kids are moving towards that online gaming sporting arena, which is really good for sciences and motor as such. Owning your own home is a big dream for a lot of Australians, and it's very important for many Australians. And it's instilled in us at a very young age that your job is to go to school, get a very good education, do the best you can to get the best job that you can, and then earn enough money to buy your house and have safety in owning a house. We're a massive nation of consumerism. We consume a lot of things. Mobile phones, computers, technology is all things that we really, really love and enjoy using. You could say we're very much like the Americans that way. We love having technology and gadgets. Our houses in Australia are very similar to yours in Indonesia. They're made of brick and mud and wood. They're all very similar in design. As such, I don't know. Has anyone got any questions? I've just stuck all of a sudden. I've just lost where I was on my notes. Has anyone got any questions? Okay, so no questions, so I'll just continue then. Keep going. You want to get this done fast, I see. Okay, so Australian etiquette. Aussies tend to be very casual and relaxed. We're not very big on formal greetings or formalities at all, to be honest. We get uncomfortable when we have to be quite formal. When meeting the first time, we normally shake hands. But if you know the person, it's not uncommon for us to hug each other and say, "G'day, mate," or pat yourself on the back, and have a joke around at the time. We always smile. And something that you get is that we're friendly, we love people, and we smile a lot, especially around family and friends. They're very important to us, and we're very loyal as a family to our families. Holidays is a big time for us as well, like Christmas, Easter. Anytime we can get together as a family is really important to spend that time together. It strengthens our bonds, and it also allows us to connect with one another and just have time joking around and reminiscing about things as when we were kids. We love entertaining. We love having people around, going out for dinner, going to a movie, cooking a meal at home. Was probably one of my big things I like doing is having friends around and cooking a big meal and trying out new recipes on them. Sometimes you try something that doesn't work and you get a bit of joking around saying, "Well, that wasn't very good," but it's all done in fun. I really don't know where else to go. Yeah, I think I've run through all my points already. That was pretty quick. Has anyone got any actual questions they want to know about anything specific? This is the time to jump in. What do you want to know or what do you need to know? Your turn.
Anyone want to ask question? What do you need to know? Anybody?
Ma'am,
Yes.
maybe about the traditional food in Australia.
Traditional food. Okay, well, Australia, because we're a multicultural country, we don't really have any unique food that is traditional to us, unless it comes from our Indigenous population, which that includes traditional foods for them is yams, grasses, kangaroo, turtle, snake is another one that we also eat, and crocodile. Crocodile is quite bland. Snake tastes like chicken. I'm not going to lie, it does taste like chicken. But kangaroo, I don't like. Kangaroo for me is very gamey, very much like buffalo. But it's very lean meat. Then sometimes you'll also get those that eat the mangrove worms and issue grubs. I can't do that. I'm sorry. That just makes my throat. No, I can't do it. No. But for other traditional foods, the staple diet in Australia is vegetables and meat. So it'll be normal families will have, say, 3 different vegetables for a meal and a piece of meat. But then again, we're also very big on eating a wide range of food from other cultures. Indian food is big in Australia. So is Chinese food is big, and so is Italian food. So those are like pasta and pizzas, all those sort of things are very big. We've also got all the fast food companies like McDonald's, KFC, Taco Bell, all those sort of things here in Australia as well. But our food, because we're a multicultural society, there's no such thing as a traditional Australian dish. Unless you want to class our barbecue as a traditional Australian dish, which is sausages, steak, kebabs, and seafood. And seafood plays actually a big part of our lives as well over here. So I hope that answers that question. Any other questions?
How about lamb roast with
It's not
mashed
tradition. I know you love your lamb roast. It's not tradition though. It's that's a tradition that came from the UK across with the first settlers and all that. And when they brought the sheep across, it's a tradition that they brought from the UK. So it's not actually a tradition for Australia as such, as a traditional food. It's something we've adopted from another nation. Anybody else got anything?
Anyone else want to ask question or want to know about Australia?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Actually, I just want to make sure. I heard that in Australia there are a lot of dangerous animals such as venomous snake and then spiders, or in the ocean you have like jellyfish that sting. Is that true?
It is very true. Australia is one of the most dangerous countries in the world. We have 7 of the top 10 dangerous snakes in the world. We've also got 5 of the top dangerous spiders that live in Australia. And we have jellyfish called irukandji. And they're about the size of your thumbnail. And they can actually cause you to have a heart attack, and you can die from them if you're stung by them. And they live up in the coastal waters of North Queensland. So it is a very dangerous place to go. However, just like in Indonesia, if you respect the wildlife and that, you're okay. If you don't go running and poking a snake, it's not going to come and bite you. And honestly, if I see a snake, I can run on water because I'm very, very scared of snakes. So when it comes to snakes, I run on water. We do have animals that aren't dangerous though. We've got the koalas. We have kangaroos that aren't, they can be dangerous, but they're not very. We have emus, platypus, all these other animals that are very unique to us that aren't dangerous. But we are known for a country to be very full of dangerous animals, and people get quite scared when they come here because they think that they're going to see them when they walk outside. But it is very rarely do you see a snake or that around your home. They're mainly out on the farms or out in the bush.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Anyone got any other things I'd like to know? Any stereotypes you want to know about or anything like that?
Anything else about stereotype, about everything about Australia?
Me. How about the entertainment in Australia?
Entertainment in Australia is very diverse. We have plays and theatres. We have musicals. We also have movie theatres. Australia has got a place called Movie World here in Queensland, and it is a theme park. We've actually got a couple of theme parks here in Queensland. And with the theme parks, a lot of entertainment happens there as well. A lot of sport we find is entertainment, and having a lot of fun doing that. Concerts are a big thing, but with COVID at the moment, a lot of our music festivals and concerts and live theatre has stopped because of COVID. And we're only now just going back to movie theatres and that. We are also a nation that we have a very big film industry, and we film a lot of TV shows and movies here in Queensland. So that's another big area that we have. But as I said, entertainment for us is mainly around friends and family. Going out to nightclubs, a lot of young people do that, and I can't say I'm young anymore. So I don't go to nightclubs or bars or anything like that anymore. However, the younger people do. Oh, I feel so old now I've said that. So yeah. So that would be your entertainment sort of area.
Anything else you want to know? Guests, you are welcome to ask whatever you need to know.
Open book. Our schooling is very similar to yours as well over in Australia. However, you have 2 sessions for school, don't you? Morning session and afternoon session. Is that right with some of your schools? Our students go to school from 8 o'clock in the morning until 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And that's Monday to Friday. They don't go to school on Saturday like you guys do. And they do 10 weeks at a time. And then they have a 2-week break in between until the summer holidays, where they get 6 weeks off in summer. They go from prep through to year 12. So it turns around they're doing about 13 years at school before they go to university. University is anywhere between 3 to 4 years for most degrees, unless you're becoming a doctor or a lawyer, and then it's an extra 2 years on top of that. So it's about 6 years in total. We have external exams, very similar to what you have. But we have 2 different types of education systems in Australia. We have the state system and the private system. The state system is run by the government, and it's free for all children to go to a state-run school. Private schools are normally run by religious organisations, such as, for myself, I'm in the Catholic organisation and in the Catholic education, but we also have Anglican and Seventh-day Adventist run schools as well. Yeah, I don't know what else to talk about.
Sir, may I
Yep.
ask you again?
Yes, certainly.
By the way, I want to know, how do Australians say hello, such as greetings in Australia?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
I want to know, how do Australians say hello?
Hello?
Yeah.
Hello. Hi, how you doing? What's up? We're very, very colloquial. As I said, hi, how are you doing? We're not very formal. We don't bow to anyone. We shake hands a lot. And if it's very, very close friends, we'll hug each other. But a lot of the time, very similar to Indonesia, in the sense that we enjoy company, our friends' company. So just like you would greet your friends we would do here in Australia as well. There are some do's and don'ts with manners and all that. For example, when you're at a table having dinner, you don't put your elbows on the table. You don't, leave the table without taking your plate, that sort of thing. Always greet people with a smile. We don't tip like in America. That's something we don't do here in Australia, is tip for service. The reason for that is that we're paid quite well for what we do in Australia. Our wages are quite good, and tipping is discouraged. It's one of those strange things that we try to be as friendly as possible. I think that's the biggest thing I can give you. Our culture is one that is open and accepting and willing to take anyone in. Your professor has lived in my house and I've lived in her house. She can tell you some of her experiences as well, living in Australia with my family and that. It's always one that my dad would always say really bad jokes and embarrass me. He would tell very, very bad dad jokes. But it was always to make sure that everybody felt comfortable and was welcomed in our home. That's all I've got, I think.
Sir,
Yes.
how about Australian socialize?
How do we socialize? As I was saying before, a big one for us is meeting our friends out, going out for dinner, going to the beach, going to a sporting event, going dancing. A lot of young people like to go dancing, going to music concerts. The last music concert I went to was Pink when she was in Australia. And that was a very, very good time, and had a lot of fun listening to Pink with my cousins. So those sort of things we do quite a lot as well. We like going on day trips, going and visiting family and friends. We like to ensure that we go to somewhere new a lot. The beach is probably one of the most favorite places a lot of people go to swim, to surf, to muck around and just get a good suntan.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Any more question? Anybody?
I have a question. What are Australia traditions?
Christmas time is a big tradition for us in Australia. A lot of people have a lot of prawns, eat a lot of prawns at Christmas as a tradition. We also eat turkey as a tradition at Christmas time. Australia Day is a day that we celebrate. And one of the big traditions for that is that we normally go for big barbecues. So we'll go and have all of our friends around, and we'll go and have a game of cricket and then have a barbecue and enjoy our time with each other and celebrate when Captain Cook landed in Australia. But at the same time, it's not always a celebration, because our Indigenous population find that they class it as an invasion day. They don't agree that it's a day of celebration, it'll be a day of mourning, because their nation was taken over by European settlement. Other traditions is we follow America a lot in some of our things. For example, some people will celebrate Halloween in October. We also celebrate the Queen's birthday, is another tradition, and we have a holiday for that. In my family, we have a number of different traditions. At Easter time, we go camping. So families all have different traditions, as you would. So at Easter time, we go camping at one of the national parks to go and have just a bit of time in nature. Another tradition that happens is birthdays. And with our birthdays, we like playing pranks on each other. We like to surprise people on their birthday and have parties and all those sort of things. But as traditions, as you would see on TV, are very, very similar to what we have.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Thank you. Someone else had a question that they got stopped before. Who was that?
Sir,
Anyone?
Yeah.
Yes, go on, Desti, sorry.
about a month ago, I was interviewing one of the Australian, and I asked this question: why is being late considered impolite in Australia? I asked that because usually in Indonesia we are accustomed to the word late. For example, at dinner or at birthday event and so on. Most of what I see in Indonesia, there are some people who are not on time. So I just want to know why being late in Australia is considered so impolite. From her answer, she said that Australia values time and time is of the essence in Australia. But I want to know, what do you think about that?
I agree. Time is really important to us. It's impolite to be late due to the fact that people have got other things they need to do. If I'm taking the time out to come and talk to you, I'd expect you to be there ready to talk about things, especially in a meeting, due to the fact that I'll have a number of other things I have to do as well in my day. And if I don't get those done, it eats into the time that I have with my family. So time is important, especially when it comes to spending time with family, because that's for us. When I'm at work, if I've got a lot of reports that I have to do, if I don't get them done in a certain amount of time, it cuts into my time, my private time that I get to spend with family and friends. And spending time with family and friends is more important than being at work or doing other things. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Thank you, sir. It really.
You're welcome.
I want to ask more question. The Australian lifestyle is relaxed, but nothing distracts Australians from sport. Australian sport culture has been passed down from generation to generation. In Indonesia, football is one of the well-known sports. Well, I just wondering what sports are popular in your place, sir. Is it the same as Indonesia or is it different?
Yes and no. I'm going to be honest with you. Sports are very similar between Indonesia and Australia. Soccer, or football as you call it in Indonesia, is very big here, and so is volleyball. However, Australians play a game called rugby league, which is like American football, um, which is very big in Australia. We also play cricket, which is from England, a game invented in England, and that's played a lot here as well. Tennis is played a lot here, which is very similar to badminton, and table tennis. So sport plays a big role in what we do, but there are some differences in the sports that we play. For example, AFL, Australian football. We also play a lot of sports. We do rodeos. For example, we ride bulls and horses that buck us off. We play polo cross, which is a game on horseback. We play polo, which is another game. Horse racing is a big here as well. But in general, we play very similar sports to what you do. There's just a couple of sports that are a little different.
How about rugby, sir? Can
Rugby?
could you explain about this?
Rugby is a team sport where men who like to throw a ball around and tackle each other. It is a game that is played by many people. As you get older, it gets harder to play the game because it hurts when you get tackled to the ground. It's a game about passing a ball from one end of the field to the other and scoring. You can use your hands as well as your feet. And the idea is to score as many tries as you can. So similar to soccer in that sense, that you're to score goals in soccer between the goalposts. For rugby, you're to put the ball or place the ball down on the ground under the goalpost, and you use your hands. With soccer, you're not able to use your hands. There's normally 9 on a field at a time for rugby, for each side, and it has a field of 11. It's an 80-minute game, so 2 40-minute halves, and for each try is worth 3 points, and then you have a goal, and then you kick a goal, which is worth 1 point after that. That's basic rugby in a nutshell. Okay.
Okay, thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
For sharing your opinion.
Any more?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Sir, I want to ask again about the destinations in Australia. Like, do you have any recommendation for tourists, maybe?
I've lived across a lot of Australia. I was born in Katherine in the Northern Territory, which is about 365 k's south of Darwin. My favourite place in the Northern Territory, in Australia, would be the Northern Territory. However, it is very similar to Indonesia. It's the closest point to Indonesia for us as well. But it's my home, so that's why I love it so much. Apart from the Northern Territory, my other favourite place is Melbourne. I love Melbourne because it's quite cold and it's got mountains around it. One of the other things that I love about Melbourne is that it has a lot more, it's a very, very big city and it's very exciting. It has a lot more activity there. And also the other thing around Melbourne, there are a lot of wineries and foodie places like cheese factories, berry farms and all those sort of things. And I like my food. I'm a very big food person and I love trying new food. So Melbourne is a place that has a lot of a foodie culture, I could say. And you can go there and experience that. Australia has some awesome natural wonders. Our landscape in Australia is just absolutely magnificent. From the Great Barrier Reef in Queensland down to the 12 Apostles along the Great Ocean Road. And then you've got the vast openness of the deserts, where it is just open skies, very, very large lands, where you can see for miles. And then you've got Western Australia is very, very beautiful as well. Totally different to the east side of Australia. Western Australia, the top end of Western Australia is very much like Indonesia, very tropical and that as well. But it also has a lot of deserts as such. The South, Sydney, I don't really like Sydney. I think Sydney's too big. It's got the Opera House and the Sydney Harbour Bridge and the harbour itself. But I find Sydney too fast and too chaotic for myself, whereas I prefer Melbourne over Sydney. Brisbane, where we live here, is one of the fastest growing cities in Australia, and it's because of our climate. It doesn't get over 32 degrees here in Brisbane, and it gets down in winter, which we're in autumn at the moment. In winter, it gets down to 15, 16 degrees. But if you go out to Toowoomba, where my university is at USQ, it gets very cold up there. It gets down to 1, 2 degrees at times. But it's also on a mountain. So where I am here, I'm on the coast. And if I go about 80 Ks inland, I'm in the mountains. So I'm very close to all the best things about living in Australia. Have you got a favourite spot in Australia that you'd like to go to? Nope. Okay. Who has been to Australia? Not yet. And I say yet because as soon as you can, you will come to Australia.
Yes, sir, of course.
Yes. Yes. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. They're very quiet. Have I scared them?
Sir,
Yes.
how about the lifestyle in Australia?
What in particular would you like to know? What about the lifestyle? Because my lifestyle is different to other people. I live with my mum and dad still, which is similar to Indonesia, where we live with our elders. Lots of people don't look after their elders as they get older and they don't live with their parents. We're very lucky here that I'm able to do that with my wife and my little boy. Our lifestyle is one that is designed for us. Our lifestyle for my family is to spend as much time together as possible. We only have to work because we want to spend money to go and do things as a family. For me, family is very important, and they're the most important thing for me. So my lifestyle is based around what I can do for my family. What my son likes to do, trying to give him the best education, give him the ability to try as many new things as he wants, and be supportive of him. My wife is very similar in what she does as well, in that sense.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Sir, I
Yes.
just want to know what were the people living condition and environment like in Australia?
Sorry, can you repeat that? I didn't hear.
What were the people living condition and environment like in Australia?
What was the living conditions in Australia? Living conditions in Australia are very high. Everybody is able to live quite well. We have free medical and free education. So because of that, our living standards are quite high in Australia. We pride ourselves on that, I think, is one of the things, due to the fact that we pay taxes, which allow us to have free education and free medical assistance. So our living conditions would be similar to what you have in Jakarta in the suburbs. People live in their own house. They have a bit of land as well. So an average house block is about 400 square meters. And normally they have a 3 to 4 bedroom house as such. Would you like to have a look at a house in Australia? Would you guys like to have a look at my house? Let's go for a walk. I'll show you my house. So we're in my office at the moment, okay? So we're going to go out of my office. This is my son's bedroom. So like everybody else, we have our own bedrooms as such. So that's my son's bedroom. Going down. Hi, Mum. So this is our house, our kitchen, dining room, and our lounge room. So, as I said, and then we go outside. And we have our outdoor area. So we have barbecues and dinner out here, and then we spend time in the garden. Our garden is not designed to produce food. We just have it as an ornamental garden that allows us to enjoy the outdoor space. Yeah, so big kitchen, dining room. I don't know where my son is. Oh, there's my wife. My wife's just come home. So yes, so my wife's just got home from work. So yeah, and then we're back in my office. So that is a typical house, and that's very similar to what you guys have in Indonesia as such. Do I embarrass you now by taking you on a tour? It's all good. Yes. Okay.
I love the kitchen.
Yeah. Kitchen's my
That's a
favorite.
big one.
It is a big kitchen.
I can spend my time at the kitchen mostly.
Ooh,
and cook something.
Can I have some mee goreng, please?
Mee goreng, that's no yum.
Yeah. But no. So, any other
All
questions?
right. Any more questions?
Sir,
Hi.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Why is Australia called as the lucky country?
Because we have the ability to let everybody have a go. If you want to make something of yourself, you're able to do that here. Because we have rights and freedoms that other countries don't have, is a big thing. You're always welcome here as long as you're willing to work. If you're happy to have a go at something and make something of yourself, it becomes a lucky country. You're allowed to create. You're allowed to build your own wealth. If you have an idea or something like that, we support you in doing those sort of things. The lucky country is something that we're given because we have so much freedom and space here. I remember flying into Jakarta the very first time, and I couldn't believe how jam-packed everybody was. Where I lived before I flew to Jakarta, it was very spread out. People have room to move here. And I think that's one of the big things that people enjoy, and why we're so lucky is that we have a lot of space for people. And we also have a lot of wealth in our country. And that wealth allows us to do things like give free education, to have a free health care system, so people aren't burdened with that. And I think that's what part of being a lucky country is. That's a really good question. Well done.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Hello, sir.
Hello.
I want to ask, the distance in each country has effect to culture and language. And Australia really near to Indonesia, but the question is why Australia and Indonesia have different language. Thank you, sir.
For us, that is because we are colonized by the British, and the British colonized us and introduced English. Indonesia, you've always had your own language. You've always had Bahasa. Even when the Dutch colonized you, you used some of the Dutch words, but you always had your own language. With our indigenous population, they have their own language, but they have many different dialects of their language, and none of it was ever written down or formally adopted in Australia. So when the European British came, English was a standard. So that continued all the way through. Unlike in Canada, where they had the French as well, they have French and English. We just have English as our national language. I hope that explains that. I hope.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Any more question or anything that you want to know about Australia?
Sir, I have question.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about the university in Australia? And is there any difference between private university and public university? Thank you.
In Australia, there are no public universities. All the universities in Australia are private and run as a private entity. Each university is ranked in Australia, and there's quite a few universities that are ranked quite high in the world as well here in Australia. Very much like your own university, we have campuses where students go and study. and the classes are ranged from all different genres, from nursing to teaching to surveying to engineering. But some universities specialise in some areas. For example, USQ, or the University of Southern Queensland, specialises in teachers and nurses as well as engineers. Then you have other universities like the University of Southern Queensland, who have a medical school, so have doctors, vets, all those sort of things. University normally takes 4 years in Australia to get your degree, depending on how well you do. But then if you want to do your master's or excuse me, your master's or doctorate, that's another 4 years as well. University is not cheap in Australia. On average, the normal course for an undergraduate is around $1,800 or 1,800 Australian dollars. I'm not sure what the exchange rate is, Marlene. What's at the moment? I have to work that out for you, what it is in Indonesian. I'll have to work that out. No, not going to happen. So yeah, it's about $1,800 for an undergraduate for each unit. So you're looking around about 15,000 to 20,000, 25,000 Australian dollars to get your university degree. And that's just your degree. That's not including accommodation or food or anything like that. So it is quite expensive in Australia to get a degree, but they'll be very similar to your programs that you do as well. Yeah. And it also depends what university you go to. We've got, in the capital cities, there's a lot of competition for universities, and each capital city's got at least 2 universities in them. So, for example, in Brisbane, we've got the Australian National Catholic University. We've got QU, which is a Queensland university, and then we've also got the University of Queensland Technology, and also USQ, University of Southern Queensland. So we've actually got 4 universities here in the city, in Brisbane.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Don't forget Griffith, Sean.
It's part of UQ.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's
Hey, this is part of UQ.
Yeah, Griffith is part of UQ. So is Gatton.
Oh, all right. And
But
then
we've
that's
also
close
got
to get.
We've
That's
also
close. They are close to each other, right?
Yeah, very close to each other. We've also got Bond University on the Gold Coast as well, and it's a very big medical teaching hospital as well.
How about University of Sunshine Coast?
Yep, we have that. It's up a bit further. It's about 100 k's away from where I am at the moment. And it is a university that is very big into computer technology. So, and they do a lot of computer generated work there, which is another very big field that's coming up in Australia at the moment. Another big area universities are in at the moment is the space race, sending rockets and that into space. There's a lot of work being done that at universities at the moment. But one of the big things is looking at vaccinations and trying to work out how viruses and that work, especially since COVID has happened.
Any more question?
Me, ma'am.
Okay.
Well, I want to ask, Is Australia a hot or cold country? Because I read on the internet that Australia has varied between grasslands and deserts.
Very much so. It was very, depending on where you live. If you live in North Queensland, say around Cairns, Townsville, Rockhampton, it's very hot and humid, very much like Indonesia. Same as the Northern Territory, Darwin, Catherine, very hot and humid, and lots of rainforest sort of area. Brisbane, where I am, is more a temperate climate. We do have 4 seasons, but it doesn't get very cold. It gets down to about 14, 15 degrees in winter, and can get up to, in summer, around 35 degrees in summer. The further south you go, for example, Melbourne, in Victoria, they have 4 seasons as well, and they have snow in Victoria. It actually snows in New South Wales and Victoria and Tasmania on the mountains, and we have skiing fields here as well, which is something you guys don't have in Indonesia. It's very funny because people say snow in Australia, but it snows here from July to about September, and that's when it gets quite cold, and that's our winter, from July to September. Inland in Australia, it's quite hot because it's desert, but it also gets quite cold at night time. Western Australia is very similar to Queensland in its temperature range, but it depends where you live to what the temperature in that is. Basically, if the top half of Australia is quite hot and dry, and the bottom half you can get quite cold. Tasmania is probably the coldest state in Australia. They've recently just had snow already this year. So that was surprising. They had snow last week. So if that's the first lot of snow we've had for 2021.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Any more question? Anything?
Going once, going twice, going 3 times.
Anybody?
Beatrix, ma'am. Hello, sir.
Hello.
I want to know about the Australian gestures because we know there are some disrespectful and good gestures and impolite gestures, like what's that, crook finger in today's era. I mean Western era. There is one. There is kind of impolite gestures, hand gestures. So could you tell us what are they? Thank you, sir.
One thing that gestures, it's very similar all over the world. Good means a thumbs up in Australia means it's good. Going like this means, yeah, it's okay. It's not good or bad. But there are those rude gestures you were saying before. For example, the extension of the middle finger at somebody is quite rude. In Indonesia, it's also rude to use your left hand. Australia, that doesn't apply here. We use both hands. We talk a lot with our hands. So, and you would have noticed myself, my hands are around. That's a way that we help express what we try to say is by using our hands to gesture. In one of the other things here in Australia is you don't see many men holding hands. In Indonesia, that's something that shocked me when I was living there, is that it was okay for men to hold hands and walk down the street and all that. as a sign of friendship in Indonesia, whereas in Australia, we wouldn't do that. For us males, it would be a pat on the back, or push them around or something like that. Rude gestures come around all the time. But if you're unsure, always ask. And that's the best advice I could give anybody. Is if you're unsure, ask what is correct and wrong, because somebody might take offense to something. Especially in Australia, we've got a lot of deaf people as well, so they could be signing using their hands, and you could be thinking they're being disrespectful, but they're not. It's those sort of things. The other thing is walking across roads in Indonesia. You put your hand out and you just walk across the road. In Australia, you can't do that. In Australia, if you did that, the car wouldn't stop. They would hit you. So in Australia, we have designated walkways, which are painted black and white on the road. They're called zebra crossings. And that's where you cross a road, and the only place you're supposed to cross the road. Also in Indonesia, for people to come, you say, come, come, come. In Australia, we don't do that. It's more over the shoulder, like, yeah, come on, sort of thing. We don't do this little hand gesture as such. So those differences happen all the time, and I find them quite funny, because I still in Australia will start walking across the road and put my hand out, because I lived in Indonesia, and that was just natural. My mum used to laugh at me when I come home from Indonesia, and I would just walk out, put my hand out. She'd have to pull me off the road and go, no, you're not in Indonesia anymore. You're in Australia. Do the road rules. So I used to get in trouble for that quite often. Okay. Good on you. Awesome. Sorry, I'm having a coffee while I'm talking. I love my coffee.
Any more question, everyone? For the guests, not I mean the guests that actually is not the students from this class, you are welcome to ask question if you want to. Don't worry. Sean will answer that.
Question. Anyone ask me a question?
Anyone? Sorry. Any more question?
Sir?
Yes.
I'm curious about why is the emu and the kangaroo depicted on Australia's Commonwealth coat of arms?
Emu, the kangaroo on our coat of arms, and we eat them. We're the only country that eats our emblems. The reason why is because they are iconic animals for Australia. They're well recognized. Everybody knows, oh, that's a kangaroo, that's an emu. They're very distinct. And by doing that, it's celebrating us as being unique. We're a very unique country. As I said before, we have some of the most deadliest animals in Australia. And then we have some of the most lovable and cutest animals you'd have. So having the kangaroo and the emu are two very iconic animals that everybody knows. And they associate, as soon as you see those, you associate that to Australia. That's why they're on our coat of arms. Very good question. I like that question. Well done.
Any more question? I have one question. I do remember Sorry. I do remember someone teach me about Australian song, but I forgot what is that. It's not kind. The word is kangaroo, blah blah blah.
Time for kangaroo down, sport.
Can you please sing it for us?
Oh no, that's by Rolf Harris. I'll see if I can find a. Sorry, I'm just bringing up Google and I'm going to search it. Tie Me Down by Kangaroo Down Sport. I'm just trying to find.
There's an old Australian stockman lying, dying. He gets himself up onto one elbow and he turns to his mates who are gathered round and he says, "Watch me wallabies feed, mate. Watch me wallabies feed. They're a dangerous breed, mate. So watch me wallabies feed all together now. Tie me kangaroo down, sport. Tie me kangaroo down. Tie me kangaroo down, sport. Tie me kangaroo down. Keep me cockatoo cool, curl. Keep me cockatoo cool. Oh, don't go acting a fool, curl. Just keep me cockatoo cool. All together now. Tie me kangaroo down, sport. Tie me kangaroo down. Tie me kangaroo down, sport. Tie me kangaroo down. And take me koala back, Jack. Take me koala back. He lives somewhere out on the track, Mac. So take me koala back. All together now. Tie me kangaroo down, sport. Tie me kangaroo down. Tie me kangaroo down, sport. Tie me kangaroo down. Let me abos go loose, Lou. Let me.
So yes, is that the one you're talking about?
Sort of. Thank you.
Sort of. That's all right. But there's a lot of different Australian songs. They're called folk songs in Australia. You've got Waltzing Matilda is a national song that we think should be our national anthem instead of what we have. You've also got the Kookaburra Sings in the Old Gum Tree, Laugh Kookaburra Laugh. You've got a whole heap of different songs like that that play on our backward country family that we are, I guess. But yeah, for example, I'm just going to bring up Kookaburra Sits in the Old Gum Tree, which is a song that kids sing a lot.
Kookaburra sits in the old gum tree. Mary, Mary, king of the bush, is he sing? Kookaburra sing your song for me. Kookaburra sits in the old gum tree, eating all the gumdrops he can see. No, Kookaburra, no. Kookaburra shares some there with me. Kookaburra sits in the old gum tree, watching all the monkeys he can see. Wait, Kookaburra, wait. Kookaburra, they look funny to me.
that's another sort of folk song that we have in Australia. That is all about our animals as such. Anyone else got any questions?
Anyone else want to ask question?
Sir, ma'am, can you hear me? Hello, sir.
Yes, Christy. Perhaps you have to put your
microphone.
Close to your mouth.
Can you hear my voice now?
Yeah, but it's very soft.
Okay. Sir, I have one question about. Do you know what are the indigenous peoples of Australia, and what is the unique about them?
The indigenous people of Australia are Aboriginals.
Yes.
I have quite a few friends that are Aboriginals, but they are integrated into Australian life and culture just as we are. And they mainly live on the coast as well. And in the Northern Territory, in Darwin and Catherine, but they live all over Australia. Okay. So Aboriginals, they don't like to be called Aboriginal. That's why we call them now Indigenous Australians, or another word that we could start using, which is politically correct, is people of the First Nations. But we normally, because of political reasoning, we refer to them as Indigenous Australians. Okay? Awesome. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Not very talkative bunch, are they?
Anyone else? Okay. Go.
I just wanna ask, is it Australian people like to small talks with cabbies, like when they go with taxi or driver?
Sometimes, but not always. A lot of the time, it depends on the cab driver as well. But yeah, it depends. Small talk happens if you feel comfortable, but if you don't feel comfortable, then it doesn't happen.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any more question? Anyone? Anybody? So, no more question? Is that everything clear about Australian culture, or is there anything that you want to know more?
Do you need anything for your assignments? Hey, I'm here now. Ask if you need.
Is it clear enough for about the Australian? Or you need more? Actually, Sean is talking using a good English instead of Australian.
Oh, I'm sorry. If you want, I'll start talking Australian if you want. Honestly, guys, come on.
That's Australian. Sometimes you cannot understand them, to be honest.
I thought I was talking too fast.
Okay. Anything else you want to know about Australian? The language, anything, the history, cultural way of life. You have asked about that one, but it's not really specific. Somebody asked about the way of life, and then Sean explained about the way of life with him is not the same with the others, because uh, his way of life is almost like Indonesian, where normally Indonesian living with our the older people will live with us. That's normal, but actually for Australian it's not normal for some of them. So older people will live by their own, by themselves, not with their children. So that's only one thing. So the way of life explained by Sean is actually only small things about the way of life. So that's why he asked you, can you please give more specific things? Anyone else want to ask question?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Hello, sir. So, first of all, so you have been to Indonesia, right?
Yes.
So, do you have like things, or do you have culture shock when you came to Indonesia?
Yes, I did. I had more culture shock actually returning to Australia, because I lived in Indonesia. I've done it twice now. My first time I was at university, and I got to spend 3 months living in Rajabasa in South Sumatra. Yeah, and I was 18, and it's the first time I'd ever gone overseas, and I knew very, very little Indonesian. I think I knew how to say Nama saya Sean and thank you. And that was it. That's all I knew. And that was very scary for me at that stage. But it wasn't until I come back to Australia and I was back at university, and I was sitting there one day and I was shocked because I'd been in this little village where my host family was self-sufficient. They had a little farm in the village, and everything come from their small holdings, where I was in a big city again, and I felt really trapped because in the village it was very laid back. Island time was very big. Time is rubber. What is that saying? I forget how they say it in Indonesian. I'm sorry, but yeah, time was very fluid. But when I was back in Australia, it was, as I said before, time was very important. So I had to be at places, and I was sort of rocking up late to the classes and all that, going, yeah, it's okay. But no, I had to be on time. So it was more of a shock coming back to Australia after being immersed in Indonesian culture and family life and village life. The other thing that really shocked me when I first went to Indonesia was flying into Jakarta, and you fly over the outskirts of Jakarta, and you've got a lot of people living on top of each other in shanty towns. That really shocked me. Never seen that type of poverty and people living in really bad conditions. That, as a privileged European, you could say, looking at that really shocked me and concerned me. The other thing that really shocked me was the amount of pollution. I remember flying over one of the rivers, and it was just black with plastic all over it. And then I went and lived in Rajabasa, and I was living on this pristine island with beautiful beaches. So the contrast of Jakarta and living in South Sumatra was another culture change for me as well. But what really shocked me was the way people lived, but they were happy. People were happy in the way they lived. For me, it was a shock because in Australia, we wouldn't let people do that. We would help people, and the government has put in place many things to ensure that people don't have to live in poverty. Don't get me wrong, we have poverty here, but it's nothing like what you see in the big cities in Indonesia and that. How do you think I went in Balikpapan? Do you think I was shocked there when I was in Balikpapan? So I'm talking to you, Professor. Marlene? Do you reckon I was culture shocked there? When I lived with you and your parents?
I don't think so. It's because the life in Balikpapan is different with in Jakarta, and also compared to South Sumatra that you said is quite different. And then the other one, because Balikpapan has lots of expat at that time, remember? So you have
a lot of expats.
You can still socialize with them.
Yeah.
And having a good time at the bar sometimes.
Never did though.
Oh, never did that.
Never did though. No,
But
I was a good boy.
I don't think that you have a I don't think that you have a culture shock when you were in Balikpapan. I don't think so.
That was my second time in Indonesia as well. So it wasn't.
You adjust with them. You just adapt with the life.
Yeah, adjusted very easily. Where originally it was quite hard to adjust to life, especially when I had to walk everywhere and learn how to ride a moped. And the idea that personal space was another thing that I had to adjust to when I first moved to Indonesia. Was here everybody likes their space. They like having space around you, whereas Indonesia, everybody likes to be on touching you. Or and me being a bule, a white person, they all like touching me and poking me and calling me gumuk. Being cute and fat is what they used to call me all the time. And they used to laugh because I used to play volleyball as well with the kids at the school. And it was that life changing from being in a city to being in a very small village. That was probably the hardest thing to do. And because there was also no telephones or mobile phone reception in the village, that was hard as well. So that was probably the biggest culture shock that I had, was looking at the poverty, the pollution, and then the contrast between living in the city and then living in the village. It was probably the biggest culture shock that I had.
So for the information, why I know about Sean when he was living in Balikpapan, because he was my associate long time ago. And when I graduate and then I arrived home, is that in 2003, Sean?
Yeah.
When I arrived home and then I met this guy. So yeah, and then for 3 months we always spent time together, isn't it? Every Saturday night we hang out near the beach with our friends. Then we went home late it's about 9 o'clock every night. Unless
Bapak didn't like it. He got upset.
Unless Friday. Bapak means that's my dad. So So yeah, and then sometimes we went home late, and then my father will got angry because of that. So yeah, that's why I know them. All right then. Any more question regarding Australian? Anyone? So actually, if you see the real Australian language is not the way just like Sean talked to us. The real one is not like that. So
I want them to understand me.
if the real one, you won't understand. That's really hard to understand, especially because they use their nose when they speak. Instead. So yeah, that's that's the normal English that you listen to Mr. Sean at the
It's the
moment.
teacher, isn't it? It's the teacher in
Because
me.
that's the teacher language. It's not the
But if
real.
you want me to talk like this, I mean, seriously, I can. And,
Okay,
it's going to be...
you can you can show us.
Oh, it's too hard now that you pointed it out. It's very hard to talk with our perceived accent. Um, we do have an accent, and it's very strong. And you need to be able to listen closely to us when we speak. And that was something when I was working with Marlene in Balikpapan with my students. I used to have to slow down and talk very proper for them to understand what I was saying. Otherwise, I would be talking, they would sit there and look at me going, Sir, Mr. Godley? And it's like, no. So, yeah, we speak fast in Australia. We can speak very fast, and again, we bunch our words together quite often, and they roll into one another. But if you've got a good ear and are good at languages, you can decipher what we're saying very quickly.
Do you know what this proper means?
Some homework for you to find out then.
That's the real Australian. Proper, water, pepper.
Proper. Hurry up, let's go. Come on. Very. The way we pronounce some of our P's and R's are very different. We also run our words together, like we make them smaller. We also make names longer. For example, if your name's John, normally you call him Jono or Johnny, or Bill, Billy, Will, William. So we like to, one of the things we do like to do is put an O on a lot of the end of things. Like, let's go to the bottle O and get a cask of goon or something like that, which is basically saying, let's go to the hotel and get a bottle of wine. We've got names for things that are quite different, I would say. How would you do?
How about if you talk in really Australian accent and then see if the students can understand you?
I don't.
Come on, you can do that.
How about I get my little boy to do it for you? He probably would. Saxon! I'll get my little boy.
See if you can understand him.
One moment.
So we are going to have the real Australian
Quickly come through here, please.
English.
Come.
And then see if you can understand. Because Sean is a teacher, that's why he uses a normal English, the standard
Sorry,
one.
he's on his way. He's just quickly getting something and he's on his way. No, you can come in. Okay,
Hello.
this is one little boy. Can you say hello?
Hi.
Okay, can you just talk about what you did at school today?
Well, today at Scarborough State School, we were learning about Dreamtime stories, like Indigenous stories.
Yep.
We are also learning on erosion.
Erosion, yeah.
And erosion is where something happens. So when erosion happens here in Australia, there are many different ways for it to cause. Like for an example, a landslide. There are many different ways for erosion to happen. So
you see, we say like a lot, don't we?
Yes,
we say that a lot. Yeah. And what's your favorite thing?
They'll have to be doing robotics.
So you like doing robotics?
I also like running and swimming.
Running and swimming. What's your favorite sport?
Soccer.
Soccer, which in Indonesia, soccer is football.
Soccer.
Yeah. Okay. What else do you like doing?
Well, I like Japanese.
You like doing Japanese?
Because when we're in year 5 and 6, we get to have a plane flight to Japan.
Do you?
Yeah.
See what I mean? This is how fast we can talk in Indonesian. You guys listening to this? You understand it?
Do you guys understand that?
Thank you, buddy.
Bye.
Thank you.
Yep. Say bye.
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 So yeah, so that's an example of a young little kid and his language in Australia. You can see the difference. I was just going to say Australian accents. See if I can get some for you that might be quite funny. Because depending where you are, Queensland has a different accent to New South Wales to West Australia. A lot of the times they say Queenslanders speak very slow compared to others, but we'll see. I'm just going to bring this up.
Welcome to this video. Today I want to show you the 3 types of Australian accent. Let's go. So if you're learning Australian English, guys, and you're wanting to perfect that Australian accent, make sure that you hit that subscribe button and the icon next to it, the bell icon, so that you can stay up to date with all of my new videos. So quick disclaimer, guys, I am not a linguist. I am simply an English teacher, specifically teaching Australian English, and a lot of my students have asked me to put this video together to show you guys the main kinds of Australian accent. As you may or may not be aware, there is quite a bit of variation in the Australian accent. True. Now, we're not going to cover every single variant in today's video. I just want to cover the 3 main kinds. And they are the cultivated accent. Hello, I'm Cultivated Pete, and I speak Australian English with a cultivated accent.
Which is
the general accent. G'day guys, I'm General Pete and I speak with a general Australian accent. How's it going? And the broad accent. Yeah, g'day guys, I'm Broad Pete and I speak Australian English with a broad Australian accent.
So there's those 3 ones. You've got that cultivated accent, which is what I'm speaking with you guys, which is the teacher accent. Then you've got the general accent where every day is more relaxed, more informal. And then you've got the laid back one, which is the real bogan accent where we're talking about flipping shrimp on a barbie with flip-flops on and with our esky going down to the beach for in our bathers as such. So there's, all those. It's quite funny when you're talking to an American and we can hear their accent really well, but we don't hear our own accent. So yeah, it's quite funny. Any questions about that?
All right. Any more question? No more question? No question? So if there is no question, we are going to close our class. Thank you, Mr. Sean, for being with us. Thank you, mate. I really appreciate your
Anytime you need me.
time to be with
Anytime.
and give us your precious 2 hours to be with
You're
us.
welcome anytime you need me.
Of course. Of course, Mr. Sean. Okay, on behalf of our students, I would like to ask Natasha to say something for Mr. Sean.
Yes, of course. Hi, Mr. Sean. I would like, on behalf of my friends and my teacher, Ma'am Marlene, I would like to say thank you so much for sharing about your culture, Australian culture, to us. I really hope that if the pandemic is over, we can go there and visit you and just have a talk, a conversation, I mean. And yeah, we really hope that we can see you soon, see you again, and talk with you again, sharing about our cultures uh, in the future moments. We really appreciate your efforts for saying all of that you have explained to us. Thank you so much, and God bless you.
God bless you, and thank you very much for having me. Anytime you guys want to chat, ask for my email. It's all good.
Thank you very much, Natasha. And thank you very much again, Mr. Sean. It's nice to have you today.
Thank you for having me. This is exciting. It's good seeing you. But anytime you need my help, just give me a call.
I will. Thank you for
Thanks.
that.